Another day, another new Chinese EV brand. This time, it's from one of China's largest automakers, Chang'an. It's called Qiyuan, and this is their first model, the A07 sedan.
Qiyuan, which has one of the more, shall we say, expressive badges of any recent brand, is situated in a very competitive price segment of the Chinese NEV market. The A07, its current flagship sedan, is priced between $21,000 and $24,000 US.
I've spent a lot of time looking at this car, both in person and in photos, and I can't help but feel like the mission statement given to the designers was design something that feels inoffensive. Don't get me wrong, this is a handsome design. I just can't really find anything distinctive about it. If it came out, say, 4 or 5 years ago, it would be a revolution. But in 2023, I think it kind of has a hard time standing out among the millions of Chinese EVs that are roaming the roads here. The A07 can be had as a pure EV or an extended range EV. Time to open the hood and find out which one we've got. Dun 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 dun, big reveal. This is the extended range EV. That means under this black plastic cover is a naturally aspirated 1.5 liter 4-cylinder. This uses a generator for both the motor and the battery pack. The battery pack is let's see if I can get the vibe for it. Lithium iron phosphate, 28.4 kilowatt hours with a CLTC range of feeling like 200 kilometers.
Pure EV models have a 58.1 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate pack and a claimed range of 515 kilometers. Both EREV and EV models have fast charging, with the latter able to go from 30 to 80% in about 25 minutes.
Time for another reveal. Is this a true liftback, or will it disappoint me by having a traditional trunk like so many swoopy roofed EVs in the past? Let's hit the button and find out. It's a liftback! Fantastic! In here we have 450 liters of space to put whatever you want, and if you lay down the back seats, it's up to 1,100 liters. This is an electrically operated trunk, so obviously it has a button here used to open and close it, but this button is a little different than those that I've seen before it. If you look closely, it says 2x lock. What that means is, if I hit that button twice, not only will it close the trunk lid, it will also lock the entire car. That means if you were to want to maybe take something out of the car and then walk away from it, you wouldn't then have to take your keys out of your pocket and lock the car. I find it hard to believe this has never been done before, but it's at least the first time I've ever seen it.
Qiyuan is positioned as a more luxurious alternative to another line of Chang'an EVs called Deepal, with which this A07 shares a platform. I think that positioning is represented in the exterior design, which is far less aggressive, but isn't reflected on the interior.
Despite the fact that their price ranges are only separated by a few $1,000s, I would say that, yeah, this thing does feel a bit more premium than the SL03. That's in terms of both style and material quality. In terms of style, it kind of splits the difference between the SL03, which really mimics the Tesla Model 3, and a neo form of minimalism. That includes the use of this flowing dashboard design with these high-tech looking materials. It's kind of a combination wood grid pattern. I gotta tell you, one of the hardest parts of my job is trying to come up with ways to describe the weird materials that I find in these cars. Whatever you want to say about it, it at least looks pretty interesting. In specific areas, at least, the material quality also feels a little bit upgraded compared to the Deepal. Take, for example, the Alcantara or micro suede headliner right here, which really does feel quite premium. There's still plenty of hard plastic. The aforementioned wood tech pattern stuff over here is very hard, as is this, but maybe it's because there's not just an oppressive black color like the SL03, but the whole thing does feel a little bit more upscale. There are also some upgrades, or at least differences, when it comes to the features inside of the car. For example, they've deleted the digital instrument cluster of the SL03 in favor of an HUD, which is available on all but the cheapest trim level. If you were to get the cheap trim level, you would have to make do with the driver information that's available on the left side of the 15.4-inch center screen. It's a very Tesla-style UI. The final thing that I noticed, and I think probably the one that makes me feel like this feels like the most premium or a more premium interior than the SL03, is the fragrance system down here. Now, this is available in other cars in this price point, but I really like the way they've integrated it into the center console, as opposed to kind of hiding it in the glove compartment. They turn it into an actual design element. I think it looks really nice.
Sharing a platform with the Deepal SL03 means it also shares some of its compromises, particularly in the back seat. As in the SL03, headroom is at a premium, and there's only one USB port.
The A07 measures about 10 centimeters or a few inches longer than the SL03, but none of that is in the wheelbase, which remains an identical 2.9 meters. That leaves you a very decent amount of legroom, but to reiterate, not a lot of headroom in these kind of swoopy roof design. You also only have one USB port. To provide a positive, however, I gotta say, these rear seats are pretty darn supportive and comfortable. This isn't what I would describe as a numbers car, but let's talk about the numbers just to cover our bases, shall we? This thing has a single rear-mounted electric motor making 160 kilowatts and 320 newton meters of torque. That motor will push it to 100 kilometers per hour in 7.8 seconds. That's not going to let your hair on fire, but then again, that's not really why you buy a car like this. Now is it?
The rear-mounted motor on the pure EV model makes an extra 30 kilowatts, but the same torque, and manages to do the 100 km per hour deed in just 6 seconds flat.
It's hard not to think about the SL3 when driving this car, because as I've said, they share the same platform and also the same powertrains as well. The SL03, it's not my favorite EV sedan, if I'm being honest. I feel like it's compromised by the fact that, one, it has a seating position that feels more like an SUV than a sedan, but it also has a suspension that is at both times too hard to be really that comfortable, but also too soft to be as sporty as you kind of expect it to be, considering the exterior styling. The A07 has no such issue. This thing has a one-track mind. Comfort. Just comfort. This is actually the type of vehicle that I really love. One that knows exactly what it's supposed to be. And what it's supposed to be is a big, soft sedan that will get you comfortably from point A to point B. Think of this like a Chinese Toyota Avalon. It has no pretensions of sportiness, unlike the SL03, and it isn't sporty at all. This thing rolls over like a dog in the corners, and the steering is very light and very vague. It's not quite as bad as some Chinese EVs that I drive, where getting steering feedback feels like trying to, high-five somebody through a mattress, but it's definitely on the soft, comfortable, easy-to-drive end of the spectrum. The suspension is really softly damped. It feels very, very comfortable over things like potholes and speed bumps. Not something I could say about the SL03, which had kind of a more brittle feeling to it when going over bumps. This thing would make a really comfortable highway cruiser, a good road trip car. Big trunk space, really comfortable ride, and it also comes standard on all trim levels with level 2 ADAS. That means automatic emergency braking and all these other kind of systems, but it also has lane keep assist, lane centering. One thing it doesn't have, which very few but some cars in this price category do have, is an automatic lane change system. That's not available in this car. You're going to have to change lanes on your own, but I trust you'll be able to manage. When I first learned about the Qiyuan brand, I was confused. After all, Chang'an already has the Deepal brand for selling affordable EVs. Why do they need another brand? I already think there's too many Chinese EV brands to begin with. That, however, was when I figured this thing was just going to be a carbon copy of a Deepal. Having experienced it, however, I have to admit, this thing is different from a Deepal, inside, outside, and from behind the wheel. Certainly different enough to justify the existence of Qiyuan.